ACI Virtual Edge step-by-step install. We've finished section 1 and section 2. So we did our AVE setup and we did our ping test and our vMotion test. In section 3, we are going to do micro-segmentation with AVE for vxlan based EPG and for vlan based EPG. So to understand what micro-segmentation is that you have set up microsegment EPGs on the same app profile where you have your other EPGs, and then you trigger some attributes on the VMs which make them move to the microseg EPG. In the AVE case, if it's a vxlan based EPG, then you have to have a vxlan microseg EPG, and if you have a vlan based EPG, you have to have a vlan based microseg EPG. Once the attributes trigger the move of the endpoint, then the endpoints are now actually sitting on the new EPG, on the microseg EPG. Since there are no contracts between the microseg EPG and the rest of the previous EPGs, no communication is possible on that side. However, the microseg EPG could have contracts with other EPGs. In this particular case, it has a contract with the patch server EPG. Now, a use case for this is where you have an IDS sitting in front of your data center and it detects some kind of signature, for instance, the FTD IDS. Once it detects the signature, it knows that the VM has some kind of a attack and it's probably compromised. So now you don't want that VM to be sitting in the previous EPG and infecting everybody else and also other EPGs that it communicates with. So it is possible for a system to put in an attribute on the VM that indicates that it's been compromised, and the microseg EPGs are set up in a way that that attribute triggers it to move into the microseg EPG. The microseg EPG has contracts with the patch server EPG, and the patch servers in that EPG go ahead and patch the VMs that are in the microseg EPG. Once it's patched, it sends a trigger back to the initial system that put the attributes in there, and that system then goes and takes the attributes off and the endpoints jump back into the regular parent EPG. In other words, you just created a self-healing network. Now, there are some rules about attribute precedence. You can find that on CCO. Here's a quick list. For instance, if you look at IP address filter or VM name, you can see that IP address filter has a precedence of 1 or 2, whereas VM name has a precedence of 5. So if you have multiple attributes set up on the microseg EPG, then you would have to look at this and figure out which one has precedence. Now let's go ahead and quickly configure microsegmentation. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go look at our EPGs that we've created, and if you notice, we have operational and we have the endpoint sitting over here. So app has CentOS 2, web has CentOS 1, and DB has CentOS 3. App and web are vxlan based and DB is vlan based. That's how we did the mapping. Based on the diagram you just saw, let's go ahead and build 2 more contracts, and we'll call it C3 and C4. Again, this is not an efficient way to make the contracts. However, for this demo, it's okay. So create contract, and I'll say any C3, and the subjects over here would be any, and filters would be any, and update. Okay, submit, and let's go and create an any C4. Subject is any, filter is any, and update and submit. So we just created 2 more contracts. Now let's go ahead and create our EPG patch that we had shown in the diagram. Let's create a new application profile for it. So we'll say application profile, and I'll call this remediate or patch servers. And I'll create an EPG over here, and I'll call it patch, and the BD will be the same BD. I don't have to, but that's what I'll do here. And I'll say update, and then I'll say submit, and then I go to that patch server, and on the domain I'll go ahead and add a VMM domain, and I'll go ahead and use my SMFX AVE. I'll do immediate, and I'll do vxlan based over here, submit. So what I have here is I'm just building this over here. I just built this EPG for the patch server. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead to vCenter, and I have this patch server over here, sitting over here, and I've opened the console to it. I just went ahead and configured the IP address, and you can see that the IP address is 10.10.10.40. So now I'm going to go ahead and edit that, and I'm going to put his VNIC on this new EPG patch. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's again filter by SM-AVE and say highlight all those, and there you go, SM patch, and let's say OK, and it is on patch. Okay, so now let's go ahead and make sure that I can actually ping the default gateway from there. So ping 10.10.10.1, and I can ping it. So the patch server is up now. Now let's go to our EPGs. Let's go to the first one that's showing up here, the app EPG, and let's look at his domain that we had over here. Let me make this smaller. And let's click on this, and you're going to see that allow micro-segmentation is grayed out over here. You don't need to do this on vxlan based EPGs. It's automatically enabled. So let's cancel that. So we know that web will be the same way, because web is also a vxlan based binding. So if I double click here, the same thing. You can't do anything there. Let's go to the VLAN based one. So domain, and I double click here and allow micro-segmentation. I can click that. So on the VLAN based one, you have to do it just like on a regular DVS that's APIC managed. On the VLAN one, you have to turn that on. All right, so now all my EPGs are ready for micro-segmentation move. So now let's go to the application EPG, and let's go ahead and click on microsegment EPG under SM app. That's where we had our web app DB. So we'll create here, and we'll create a new microseg EPG, and we'll call the first one vxlan based. USEG. And the bridge domain has to be configured, so it's that VD10, and that's all I really need. So I'll say next and finish. All right, then the next thing to do here is to go ahead and put in the domain, and for the VMM domain, I'm going to choose the FXAVE. Since this is the vxlan based one, I want to do vxlan over here. So this is the vxlan based one, so I choose AVE, and in cat mode will be vxlan, or it would do it automatically for vxlan since I chose AVE, but anyway we'll do that, and we'll say submit. So that's done. Now let's go ahead and create one more microseg EPG, and we'll call this vlan based USEG. And this one we are going to put it on the same bridge domain as the parent, so BD10, and then that's all I really need. So I'll say next, and I could do that right here, and I'll just say finish, and I'll do it separately. So so for the VLAN based EPG, microseg EPG, I go in and I do add VMM domain, and now I put the same VMM domain SMFXAVE, and here I'll do immediate for now, and I'll do native, means not vxlan, and I'll do submit. So let's go ahead and look at the diagram again. What we did is we made the patch EPG, we put a server in there, a patch server, that's 10, 10, 10, 40. Now on the vxlan based EPG we have 10, 10, 10, 10, and 10, 10, 10, 20, two endpoints, and actually sorry, we have one endpoint, and on the EPG app we have one more endpoint. So yeah, both of those are sitting on vxlan based EPG, and 10, 10, 10, 10, 30 is sitting on the VLAN based EPG. So now we've set up everything, so we need to set the contracts up for C3 and C4, and then we need to trigger our attributes. Okay, we had already built the contracts, so now let's go and apply the contracts. So on the patch server, I'll go to the EPG, and on that EPG I'm going to go ahead on contract, and I'm going to say add provider contract, and I'll add contract for C3, and I'll say submit, and I'll add one more contract, add provider contract, and I'll add a contract for C4, and I'll say submit. So that's done. Now I'm going to go to my microseg EPGs that I had, and that is over here, these two, and for the top one I'm going to go and put a contract for C3 consumed. So contract, add consumed contract, and C3, submit, and then on the bottom one I'll put a contract for C4. C4 contract, submit. So those are done now. Okay, so now just as a refresher, we have our three EPGs sitting over here, and we did go and see that our EPGs all have their endpoints sitting in the proper EPG. So now I'm going to go to the microseg EPG, the VLAN based first, that's the one on top. And then what I'm going to do is on the USEG attributes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add an attribute, and I'm going to do something very simple just to prove a point. And what I'll do is I'm going to do a VMM name over here. So I'll say VMM name, and for operator I'll say contains, and we know that they contain CentOS. So I'll just say that. I could have put an attribute like some description that says it's tainted, or it needs remediation or something like that. But anyway, so I'll go ahead and do that, submit, and submit. And then I'm going to go over here to the vxlan based one, and I'll go to the USEG attributes, and I will go ahead and add the attribute there. And again, I'll do the same thing, VM name, and then I will say this contains, and I'll say CentOS, and I'll say submit, and I did my submit changes over here. Now let me go to the vxlan based USEG, and if I look at operational, you're going to see that both the CentOS 1 and CentOS 2 that were vxlan based have been pulled in over there. And if I go over here to operational, you'll see that CentOS 3, which was DB, was pulled in over there. Now let's go to the console and of the patch server, and if you look at the diagram again, let me put it over here. So now these arrows show that these endpoints are in here. So now the patch server should be able to reach 10.10.10.10, 10.10.10.20, and 10.10.10.30 because the contracts are there. However, 10.10.10.10 cannot reach these other guys 10.10.10.30. Now 10.10.10.10 should be able to reach 10.10.10.20 over here because they are in the same microseg EPG. But I could go ahead and make the microseg EPG into an isolated EPG also, in which case they could not talk to each other. But there's really no reason to do that because they are all in here for a particular reason. So now let's go to the patch server and ping 10.10.10.10, and it's good. Let's ping 10.10.10.20. That's, oh, not 2, 20, and that's good. And let's ping 30, and that's good. So everything is now in the patch server, in the patch EPG, and everything is in the microseg EPG, and the patch EPG can reach them. Now let's go ahead and remove the micro-segmentation. Let's say that they got patched, and the system that put them in there automatically through some API calls to vCenter, they put the attributes. That is now going to come and remove the attributes. So I'll hit minus and submit, and I'll do the same thing on the other one, and I'll come back to my USEG EPG to attributes, and I'll say submit. So I'm basically taking the attributes off over here, but instead I could have actually gone to the VM and changed the attribute there, and then the attributes wouldn't match and they would jump out. And I do this, submit changes. So now if I look over here on operational, I don't see any more endpoints. I look over here on operational, I don't see any more endpoints. If I go to any of these, and I'll show you one, let's say web, and I go to operational, and the endpoint is back where it was. And if I now go to the patch server and I try to ping like I did before, that's going to fail because it's no longer, it has no contract with the initial base EPG. It only had a contract with the microseg EPG. So that concludes the training over here for ACI based AVE install. We finished section 1 and section 2, and then we did section 3. So this is the end of the training. Thank you for watching.